in the most candid way, the way we normally do things here, I was hoping that maybe we could break down those 7 C's and offer them as some sort of gift or Christmas gift to all these teachers, all the people who listen to this podcast, as a way to encourage them to eventually make that leap, take that leap, jump, and eventually embrace this. What do you guys think?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
I'm game. As long as one of the C's is candy cane, I'm good to go.
Those are Andrew's sweatpants.
That's right.
Candy cane.
You got to see the B-rolls, folks. You got to see the B-rolls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
I want to start by asking a question, a very similar question to the question that I posed in that episode of the 7 C's. And the question is very simple. I'm going to ask both of you. Maybe you have the answer, but if you don't, we're going to unpack this together. But why do you think some teachers thrive? Why do you think some teachers do so well the moment they step into entrepreneurship while others are still struggling? What separates those who build those sustainable, profitable, in their own terms, of course, teaching businesses from those who are still stuck in the grind?
I don't know if there's one answer to that. I don't know if this is the first C or a second C, or if this is just a leading question. But perseverance to me is like the biggest thing. Sticking with it, not giving up when things get hard, but also knowing when to cut bait when something's not working and pivot at the same time. Depends on the definition of thriving, the definition of stuck, and what's in many different stages. But certainly with an audience that we work with, certainly getting clients is one thing that we hear is the main challenge or main obstacle for a lot of people. If a teacher is thriving, maybe they're able to get clients consistently, which means they've gone through the trial and error, or it probably means they've gone through the trial and error process to figure that out and learn a system that you're not copy what somebody else is doing per se, but trial and error and see what works for me with my niche and my offer. And we all know that getting clients is almost impossible if you have nothing to sell, if you don't have an offer in the first place. So getting that. But I think persistence and embracing the next challenge, that kind of philosophy, because it's never over. If you solve one, then the next one, whack-a-mole kind of thing, right?
Okay.
The next one pops up. So seeing it as an opportunity rather than something that as a burden.
Yeah, I don't want to mention a C because I think I might be stealing some thunder from later on in the episode, but so I'll dance around it a little bit. But invested, they just seem more invested in the journey. And what I mean by that is they're committed to a decision. And I feel that the successful ones are the ones that come in and say, you know what? I've been putting this off. Now is the time that I'm going to invest whatever time I have, 10 minutes a day, an hour a day, 10 hours a week, to seeing this through. And it goes to what Andrew said, right? It's about showing up. It's about failing early and often. But I feel the ones that are most successful are the ones that just finally cut the cord, whatever that cord might be to them, and take the plunge. I'm just trying to think of as many expressions as I can.
That's a better answer, actually.
Well. Yeah.
That's a better answer, I think.
But
to be consistent and to do those things, it's almost impossible if it doesn't matter to you. The question we ask people is, why is this important to you? Why is this the choice you're making? There's a lot of jobs you could go have. You go work at McDonald's, you could become something else. You could work 2 teacher jobs. You could do lots of things. So having your own business is difficult, to say the least. Requires dedication and consistency and investment of time, sometimes of money. Why is that the path you're choosing, and why does it matter to you? With good reasons and good answers, then the other parts become easier. But if that's not, if your heart's not in it, it's very difficult.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm always reminded of this question that Leo likes to ask, which is, I have time for something, right? Oh, I'd like to start my own business, but right now is not the right time. Versus, I'd like to start my own business, but it's not a priority to me. And I think like the people that are most successful are the ones that say, oh no, I do have time for it. And what's more is that the reason I have time for it is because it's a priority. And once they flip that switch, I think that's when they start to see the most gains.
Here's interesting. I was taking notes on the keywords that you guys were coming up with.
Cliches there.
Andrew
I just couldn't think of enough. Yeah.
Andrew has a PPC. It sounds like a political party. It's perseverance, pivoting, and consistency. Mike, you have an ICP, which sounds like the name of an ESL school, but it's
The world needs more
invested,
acronyms.
commitment, and prioritizing. That you guys didn't use many C's. You have consistency
to.
there.
Yeah. Our industry
But-
doesn't have enough acronyms. We need some more.
But what I was thinking we could do today as a gift is to connect all these 7 C's to create some sort of actionable framework that can help teachers who are still feeling a little stuck or who want to make that leap and want to succeed on their own terms. So what I was thinking this episode would be, it would be that us talking a little bit more about this framework, the relevance of it to teachers who want to eventually step into this entrepreneurial world, because we all know that success is not a random thing. It's built on very specific, very universal conditions. And I think what you guys were hinting at were those universal conditions that successful people have in common.
And
I
that
think,
thriving teacher that imaginary thriving teacher that you mentioned earlier is the person that when you see them thriving, you don't see the struggle that happened
Mhm.
before, right?
Fair
There's
point.
very few people who become successful with no hurdles, no obstacles, no giving up, no
Exactly.
thoughts of, we've all had those thoughts. And any successful person will tell you, I'm sure, with truth serum, how difficult
Yes.
it was and
yes.
how many nights they didn't sleep and how they probably thought of giving up multiple times. So
Yes.
that is, in my opinion, that's normal. That's
Yeah.
part of the process. So it's not, maybe that's a misconception, but that is it's a little kind of a C, right? A conception or a misconception of it's never easy for sure.
Sometimes anyway, I don't want to get into the word misconception, but you said something very interesting. I need to take notes. But
That's
I
a
wanted
small
to-
C.
Yeah.
Small C.
But I wanted to say that I think the reason why we're talking about this, especially for those of you listening, is because we really want to offer some sort of clarity for those teachers who need to navigate the challenges of building a business, as you rightly reminded here of that, Andrew. So we have seen these principles in action, both in our own journeys and, of course, in those of those successful teachers that we have helped. So I would like us to unpack each one. So I was hoping we spend an average of 5 to 10 minutes on each so we can actually give people good value for this. Number one, I think everyone knows this. It's,
Drum roll. What's number
well,
one?
it is, well, we talk about this. Teachers need to have a very clear conception of what they want. And when I think about conception, I always think about Andrew talking about defining your niche and Mike defining a vision. Why? Because a lot of teachers struggle with very vague goals, right? Oh, I want to make more. I want to teach online. That's not enough. So how can teachers have or develop a clear conception? How can they define or have a vivid picture of what they want to achieve?
$1 million question. I can tell you how I do it because I don't think that there's one answer to that. I don't want to say you should do this, you should do that, but I can give you my example. I know more or less, this is December, this is Christmas. I'm doing my financial goals for next year, right? I'm writing it down. Been bugging Mike with financial questions, right? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out my next 12 months. And in the nature of our industry with precarious and you don't know necessarily where the next contract is coming and this and that, how I put it together is I have 3 different sources of income and I have a revenue goal or an income goal for myself for the year. And I strategize estimating how much money I'm going to make from each one. And the one that's more in my control is the one or the ones that I do working for myself because you can't change rate that the school pays you, right? So I just figure out, okay, that's how much I need to make for that and how much I anticipate making for that and piece it together and then come up with a strategy of I annualize it. So on a monthly basis, what does that mean? And what do I need to do to get there? And that becomes, the financial goal is based on the lifestyle that I want to have. So it doesn't start with how much I want to make from my business, if that makes sense. It starts with what's the broader goal of, so I can take 2 months off per year and I can do this and I can take 1 or 2 trips and I can do this. So what does that number look like? How do I get there from the different sources of income that I have? And then breaking each one down to estimate as best as possible because you never know for sure, but to see, okay, then therefore on a monthly basis, this is what that would look like. And that gives me something to shoot for.
Okay.
Yeah. And to springboard off that, from the business model side of life, I think there are like 3 key questions every teacherpreneur should start off with. One would be a who question. So who do I want to help, or who do I know I can help? I think those are 2 kind of key who questions you can ask at the very beginning. What do I think I can help them with? We always talk about what's the problem I can help them solve. And then I think that 3rd question is a how, right? It's a how do I go about this? And this gets to what Andrew just said, not only from a pedagogical standpoint, how would I like to design my course, but also how would I like to design my lifestyle around that course? And when do I want to be working? How many hours a week do I want to be teaching? How many hours a week do I want the students to be doing something else without me? And I think those 3 questions can really set you up nicely for conceptualizing a business plan or a business model.
In order for you to have a clear conception, again, as Mike said, as Andrew basically said, instead of just saying you want more students, say I want to teach soft skills in English to professionals in tech, and I want to make $5,000 a month within 6 months.
Yes, exactly.
So the takeaway for us for the first one is the clearer your vision, the easier it is to create a roadmap.
Specifics. I think getting specific. I talked to a teacher this afternoon, very nice conversation, but she could not answer those questions. Like, how many students do you want to have? How much money do you want to make? When people say, I want to get more clients, what's the number? Like, how many people do you want to have in your, and there's different, depending on what phase people are at, it will be different. But that reminds me, when people ask me, and I'm sure you guys have the same reaction when they ask you this question, like, Andrew, how much should I charge for my course? What should the price be? I think it's it's not a bad question, but it's putting it ahead of how much do you want to make?
Yeah,
that's right.
First. Then, Leo, you just said arbitrarily of $5,000. If you want to make $5,000 a month, right? Okay, great. So you have, let's just say 3 options. There are more than 3, but let's just say 3 for simplicity. You could have 1 client who pays you $5,000 a month. Option 1. You could, you're going to see my math skills in real time here. You could have 10 clients who pay you $500 a month. I think that works, right? Or you could have 100 clients who pay you $50 a month.
Yeah.
Now, there are other calculations that work with 5,000, obviously, but that would be my strategy. If my goal is 5,000 a month, how do I get there? And therefore, how do you price your thing? And then you have to figure out if you want 1 client at 5,000. That would be difficult, obviously. But if you did that, then you'd have to sell something that's worth it. So then you have to figure out, how do I build a thing that's worth that amount of money?
And I think if you're listening to this, folks, what you should be pulling from this is that we're starting with the end and working backwards. And that's a strategy that you can use right away. Just say, okay, what's that end game? And then work backwards from there. A lot of the great best fitness apps that are out there, they ask you right away, what's your target? When do you want to achieve it? And then it works backwards. And it says, okay, by this date, you need to be reducing your calories by this amount, and you need to be trying to be at this weight. Okay. So it's the same process. And that's something that's really important here. It's not just us recommending strategies. It's us also recommending process for how to implement some of these.
Okay. I feel like 2 things you guys said connect to the second C. Andrew was saying like, why? I was thinking about like, why couldn't she answer those questions? Why couldn't she do it? And then the other question is, how do I get there?